It's exciting to see everybody coming into the screen here. Really good.
Hello.
Hello there, Maria Foscarinis, welcome.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's so nice to be with all of you.
It's really nice to have you here. Really nice. Thank you. We've got a lovely lot of people joining us. Wow, look at that. Pages and pages. That's fantastic. Great. So, Mika, do you think we've invited, has everyone come in who was waiting to come in? Yeah?
Yes, and a few will keep coming, but feel free to stop.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Andrea, can we ask you to start us off, please?
Yes, please. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody to this is the first Elders Council webinar for 2021. Our first year was last year, 2020, and just a little bit of background about why we started the Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs. Chris, Mel, and I are pioneers of the social enterprise community, and in our time, 20, 30 years of doing that, we've seen so many of the challenges that social entrepreneurs face from founding to succession and onward. And so we wanted to start an organization where people would have the space and the warmth to really talk about some of the issues, especially succession and transition, that often are really ignored and often very rarely spoken about. So during our first year, we came across all sorts of challenges that people were facing around around succession and transition, how to prepare for transition, how to retain the magic of the founder, how to support the CEO into their new place. Where do you find a new CEO, and what sort of board supports transition, and what's the next stage for a founder who's moved away from their organization or out of their organization. So today we're honored and delighted to have Molly Melching and Elena Bonometti from Tostan to talk to us and to discuss with us some of the issues that they have looked at and encountered during transition. Molly shone a light on an issue that was neglected and deeply rooted in culture. She used her sensitivity and respect for local communities and the leaders she worked with. And with equal facility, she employed her powerful gifts of promotion with a deep commitment to human rights to bring the issue to the attention of the global community. Molly has handled local and international communities with tenacity, respect, and commitment, and has the unique gift of bringing her board and her stakeholders with her on the journey to this point of new leadership. Elena, with her own experience and vision, has taken on the mantle of leadership of Tostan, accompanied on her own journey by local leaders of Tostan in now many countries. Her own vision embraces with respect and grace all that Molly before her has set in place. And as in the title of our webinar today, we feel their battle cry must be, "Don't stop me now." Over
Exactly.
to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. That's lovely. Well, it's my privilege to be facilitating the proceedings. So we'll be inviting Molly to come in 1 second, and then she'll be followed by Elena, and then we'll have some discussion, questions, whatever you would like to bring as elders and guests to the program. And then Mel, our third co-founder, will be wrapping up the session at the end of the hour, about 5 minutes before we stop. So thank you very much. Molly, may we ask you to, as it were, step forward and start off the program for us.
Yes, I'd be very happy to. And I want to thank all of you for inviting Elena and I to come and discuss with you today. We're very excited because we think we have a wonderful story to tell. I want to start by just giving a little background. I came to Senegal in 1974, so that is 47 years ago. And I actually didn't start Tostan or found Tostan until I had already been in Senegal for 17 years. I developed the program that eventually evolved into Tostan's flagship non-formal education program we called the Community Empowerment Program. And I did that in collaboration with villagers when I lived there in a village for 4 years after I'd already been in Senegal for 8 years. And stayed in this rural community and looking at their needs and priorities, and it developed and evolved over the years. And it was mainly geared towards women and girls who've never been to formal school, and was originally funded solely by Tostan. So that was originally because we were consultants working with UNICEF, funded by UNICEF, until 1999. When I actually incorporated our organization, the team that was working together as a 501c3 in the US. And I want to be very honest with you today and tell you that when I started Tostan, I had absolutely no experience in NGO at all, in organizations, and hardly knew what an NGO was, to tell you the truth. I started off as the CEO, and with help from other people and little experience in the NGO operations, human resources, fundraising, boards, and all of that, nonetheless, managed to continue on and made it with the support of UNICEF, really, for about 5 years with total funding from UNICEF, until the day that the then representative called me into his office and said, "Molly, it is time for you to spread your wings and fly and really, learn to be more independent as an organization. You're not UNICEF, you're Tostan now, and you've had enough success that you can go out in the world and do your own fundraising, et cetera, et cetera." So I admit that was a bit of a shock for me, because I had been used to really focusing mostly on the programs and extending the program mostly in regions in Senegal. And so it hit me suddenly that as CEO, you have to do a lot of other things if you want a sustainable NGO. And so after moments of panic and crying and whatever, we plunged ahead and again, made some mistakes, but really our program had continued success. And we were determined to really go out, look for other sources of funding, build a larger, stronger, and more engaged board, and work more on our operational aspects. So the organization grew with our highs and lows, and we had started having even more success with our human rights education and with ending harmful traditional practices, which led many other countries to be interested in using our program. In fact, we grew in a matter of only a few years from being only in Senegal to being in 8 countries with our whole program, sending Senegalese out to support others with this 3-year education program. So it was really quite a challenge. And, we moved forward with our financial and administrative directors who were hired. I continued the best that I could. And then around 2015, we had our great CEO, who was Jennifer Hedrick, who was with us. She had been with us for many years and really had done a lot to improve the organization and the operations and everything, but she was leaving to become the director of Peace Corps in Rwanda. And suddenly I was left. It was a very difficult period. I can just say, I won't go into detail, but it was just a very difficult period for me, realizing how important it was to have, at this time, when I was nearing the age where people normally retire, okay, so that was after Tostan was 25 years old, and I was like 65, it was like, okay, I should be retiring, but I was worried, of course, about turning over my baby, as we say, into the hands of someone else. And I also realized that as CEO, you know, being in charge of fundraising and management operations and human resources and all that goes with that in all these countries, I had not the time that I had wanted to spend on programs. That's what I really, really love more than anything. And I thought, gee, before I go, I really want to have time to mentor staff and work on reviewing and revising sessions. And even you know, in 2015, we were still creating new programs, and I loved being part of that, you know. So for me, the ideal CEO would be someone who would allow me to stay on and do that. So I went to the board and said, look, it is time. I know that I'm, you know, at the age where you normally retire, and I'm willing to do this. But if it were possible, could I please stay on? And could we possibly find someone who would accept to be CEO with me still around? So we started the process, and we, you know, I thought, okay, we'll just send out applications and people will apply and we'll find the right person. And so we did. We had good job description and all, but we got so many applications, and well, you wouldn't have believed some of the applications we received. Well, you know, all very nice and sweet and everything, but really we did not find the person that we had been looking, you know, for. And so, you know, we went back to the drawing table, and around that time, I went to a meeting at the Skoll Forum. Luckily, there was a meeting on CEO founder transitions. Wonderful meeting with 10 other CEO founders, just pouring their hearts out about what their experiences had been. And I was, you know, copiously taking notes. Okay, wow. You know, some were positive, some were, you know, really great, and others were, oh dear, I hope I don't have to go through this. So, you know, after that, I thought, okay, this is really, really important to interview people. And I went on, and I found, I knew of CEO founders who had successful transitions. So I called them and had long interviews, which I wrote up, and found articles. One of the articles is one that we sent out to you, A Table for Two. And I showed this to the board, the interviews, the ones that were successful, the table for two, you know, and we looked at the pros and cons. I mean, it was really, you know, an important discussion. And what was wonderful is I have, and still have, a wonderful board, and a wonderful board during transition. I cannot emphasize how important it is to have that wonderful board there. And they actually formed a transition committee made up of board members and even other trusted key supporters who loved Tostan, who cared about the organization, and that, you know, respected the fact that I did want to stay on. And I don't know, they were just so wonderful to me. And we realized with the help of one of our key supporters that we did need a search firm. So I'll just tell you who that was. It might be of interest to you. It's Perret Lever, Lever, Lever or Lever. And they led the search because we felt that it was better that we go forward with that, as we hadn't found the person we needed. And we then had a meeting, and this retreat was so critical in the whole process. It was so important to me. I can't even begin to tell you, because we visualized what was our ideal CEO and what was our ideal organization 5 years from now. This is what we do in the villages too, but we actually sat down and really thought through it very carefully. And, you know, we visualized that, and then we threw it out to Perret Lever and to the universe, our vision for the future of Tostan. And I think it worked, you know, because with these board members who actually met regularly, like every week during this process, they were so engaged. They would call to make sure that I was okay, that the process was going okay. And then another thing I want to add before I finish is that I did go to the Skoll well-being sessions. And wow, that was very important, because it allowed me to stop. You know, I had lots of thoughts, and confusing and concerning thoughts, and worried about the future and all this, but it really allowed me, that well-being retreat. There were 3 of them, actually. I was very lucky that it was so wonderful that it happened just at this time, to go to a deeper place in myself and confront all these, worries that I had, and just, it's going to be okay. And, I'm going to have to hand over this organization that I've led for 25 years, but it'll be okay. And so it really gave me the courage to make, at that time, I had to make some very important decisions about staff in the organization that I had been fearful of confronting, but that I knew were critical to the future of the organization. And then in that space is when I met Elena, and I tell you, it was a gut reaction. I knew immediately, this is the vision of the person, that we said we wanted in the place of the CEO. It's sometimes you just have to go on those gut feelings where that. But then we did something that I thought was really important. She came in for 6 months as a COO. And it was there that she not only taught the values, but she walked them also. And we lived those values with her during those 6 months. And it convinced us even more that she was the right person for taking over Tostan, that, the board loved, I loved, and I think I'm so lucky. I always say that to everybody, how lucky I am, because I feel great respect from her. She consults me on many things, but I really have learned to turn over the decisions to her. She makes her own decisions. And I think the coaching, and we continued coaching, and the board really supported that, continued coaching for both of us. And so, those are just some of the points that I thought were so essential. I think CEOs, okay, yeah, that's
that's absolutely
those
great.
are the essential points. I was going to make about 3 essential points, but that's okay.
But you can bring them back later. Why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much for that fascinating talk. And Elena, would you like to come straight in and follow up? Let's see if your story is the same as Molly's.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's a different side of the story, of course. So thank you to all of you for, first of all, this great opportunity to share, as Molly said. And, I must say that, it has been the greatest honor of my life, really, to be in a succession with Molly Melching, such an inspirational founder, and, a wonderful person that many of you have met, of course, in person. I must disclose that I was new to transition. So I come from a family that has a family business, and I've witnessed the difficulties and the sensitivity of a transition between the founders, my mother and my father, and my siblings. And that has been a fantastic, of course, a learning experience for me when I found myself in this, of course, very important position. So I did my homework before even having the opportunity, of course, to experience my own transition with Tostan and with Molly. And I actually had the chance really to study transitions, to study in particular family business transition that I think did apply in so many ways and so many partners to Tostan. Because as Molly said, Tostan grew organically and, started very small, but then eventually, thanks to the important work and really globally recognized work that we have been doing the past 30 years. By the way, we are 30, so the transition indeed was an important moment. And so I did do my homework by, when I had the opportunity to do an executive MBA 10 years ago. So I did study succession. So that I think gave me a confidence that this could happen. And of course, as Molly said, there were very good experiences and also very bad ones. And so we wanted to make sure that this works, both for Tostan, actually above all for Tostan, and of course for Molly and for myself. So I think what we shared with you today, so the table for two, it's an approach, it's one of the approaches, and there's no one size fits all for a transition. It depends on the organization, it depends who the person, who the founder is, depends on the new CEO is. And I think what we learn in this process is, of course, a great deal of respect. And I had seen that with my personal experience, seeing really the sensitivity, as Molly said, the founder, it's not only an organization, it's the baby, it's the investment of a life, it's so many things, it's family. So there is a lot of emotion, and I think respect should be the playing role. respect for every single moment the founder goes through. And of course, it applies to the CEO, but it's a very different, I think it's a very different sphere of emotion for the founder. And again, I had seen that with my family. And so I felt deeply connected with Molly, with a lot of respect for what she was going through, and also the fact that she was so brave to go ahead and say, okay, we need to do this because of, you know, the organizational benefit of the transition for an organization like Tostan, again, that was about to turn 30. And so there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty around what happens when Molly won't be there anymore. So I felt really a lot of responsibility in making this a successful transition for really the future of the organization and the future of the partnership that we have with our communities. So we took this approach, which was having, okay, Molly at the table, so a table for two again, where we take decision, as Molly said, in a very participatory way, but where I'm responsible and she reports to me. And this has been very clear since the very beginning. And I think Molly made that choice. There was also, you know, discussion of, should Molly just stay on the board and be out? And Molly said, no, I want to be part. I'm not going to manage anyone. So Molly doesn't manage anyone, but she reports to me. And we agree on a work plan and we check in on priorities, and she has KPIs as everyone else. But our KPIs that we check in, you know, in a less formal way than the other staff, because she's also a board member, of course. So she has that special situation that we handled specially. So this is a mutual success approach. Molly was my biggest asset when I joined Tostan. So I couldn't even believe a succession where Molly wouldn't be at the table. I mean, Molly was the key, the broker to any relationship I started at Tostan. Founder that wanted Molly to stay, also partners that also wanted to see a change in the leadership, a renewal of the leadership at Tostan, because that would have allowed really the organization to move forward, to grow further, to develop in the new exciting stage of life. And so I think what we did with Molly is take this process. And I remember very well, Molly, that first day when we said, okay, so now I'm not the COO anymore. So as Molly said, I spent 6 months with Molly, nurturing, knowing, building the trusted relationship that we needed to make this happen. And those 6 months were, of course, instrumental. Those were the 6 months that I always say there was a 6 months interview. We really decided that we could do this together. And I think that was true for Molly, and that was true for myself as well. Am I going to embark myself in something that is going to be painful? Because of course that is going to be just a challenge. And those 6 months made me realize that this was going to be really the most enjoyable and amazing relationship that I would have built. And of course, we always say with Molly that above all, we love each other, but we discuss everything. We agree, we disagree a lot. And so, but we always come to a conclusion. We always find the way to come to a consensus. And I think in this game, in this conversation, in this dance, of course, personalities do play a role. I don't think we should, should underestimate this. I think the personality that both Molly and I have are personalities that are truly committed to the mission. And this is not about Molly. It's not about the founder. It's not about the CEO. This is about Tostan. This is about the organization first. And each time that, we had some tension or we had things that really we disagreed with, and we sat down and we said, okay, Molly, what's our common agenda here? What's really what do we really want for the organization? And then we will find that consensus around that table for two. And I think that's, to me, really the powerful image of this. And we followed a little bit. We know this paper, and I'm going to take you through a couple of ideas that I found particularly powerful. But the image of coming together around the table to discuss, that is the image, I think, of the relationship that we have with Molly. So common agenda, we might be on separate paths sometimes, but we sit down again to meet and to continue together. Because it happens, there are days which is a little bit challenging. It's difficult to have conversation. And then, we just wait. We wait the following day. We don't have to discuss everything on one day. So we wait for the right moment to approach, maybe some sensitive issues. And, this maybe might have happened a couple of times, but I don't even remember a single episode where really me and Molly couldn't find a solution based on this common agenda, based on the commitment to bring the organization forward. So I think one key word in this process to me is the intentionality. And I think Molly said it. It started with a lot of intentionality from her side, that she needed to understand better this process for herself. And so that journey of well-being, and then also the journey of other people that have gone through this. And, we can learn so much from other mistakes. Then we need to go through ourselves. But really, we really needed to experience that in a way that was personal to me and to her, of course. And so that intentionality has brought us forward, as Molly said, to having that transition committee. The board, as Molly said, I couldn't agree more, played a major role here, also because it was a sounding board to what we were doing together. And so the fact that we had to sit regularly with the transition committee also sometime, obliged us, forced us, not that we needed, but, again, to have really dedicated moments for us to discuss about the process. How is it going? How do you feel in all of this? What are the emotions? How are we doing this journey personally and organizationally? And so that I think were check-in moments that were critical, again, to bring us together. And this, so the board played a role, the transition committee played a role, and also the coaching, being supported in this. It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one. So we just need to realize we have different vulnerability. We need to be supported. And so I think coaching helped us a lot, and we still keep doing this. I strongly recommend all of you, if you don't have a coach yet, to have a coach. This is the best sounding board you can have. And also really the staff also helped a lot, because Tostan staff is the most dedicated one I ever seen. Some of them have been with Tostan for 20, 25, 30 years. So the loyalty to Molly, of course, is beyond what can be expressed in words. So it was very important for Molly to empower me to take over that loyalty. And so, the process was, of course, very important with the board, and it was very important with staff. And I think I really appreciated, and I knew that this was going to work the minute she said, many of the staff that naturally, of course, were going to her for asking for decision, or said, I'm not in charge anymore. This is now Elena's job. I'm here to support. I'm here to support her to make the right decision. And that really empowered me to really become the leader of the organization that I am today. And again, that didn't happen day and night, that was a process, but a process that was nurtured with a lot of intentionality, again, trusted commitment between me and Molly, and a lot of cooperation between us, and a lot of checking in, and asking about what do you think, how did you react to that, and a personal journey above all, really truly embedding the commitment to advance our mission, the mission of Tostan, which is dignity for all. So thank you.
Elena, thank you so much for that presentation, which is, it's like I was thinking your presentation and that of Molly's is like an avocado, it's two halves coming together. And so it's been lovely to hear both sides. And I'm slightly envious. I don't know whether other people realize this, but both Molly and Elena are, of course, in Senegal, and Molly goes walking on the beach in lockdown and has a swim, which I must say it really beats being in England, I can tell you. So we'll continue now with some thoughts and questions. Andrea, you were kicking off with a couple of questions I noticed in the chat, and then we had Jean-Marc as well. Andrea, why don't you come in first, and then we'll ask Jean-Marc to come in. And if other people would like to come in, please do. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you. I just wondered, Molly, if you ever considered a senior management team handover rather than to an individual.
Actually, I don't think I must be honest to say, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but I don't think that was necessarily something that I thought of. And a lot of it was based on interviews that I had where there were people who had tried that and had said that it didn't work. And maybe they hadn't had the right training. It could have worked if there had been proper preparation, but it was not. I didn't quite think that we were at that stage yet. The teams, the pedagogical team is in other countries. It would be so difficult at the time that even in 2015, we had difficulty with connecting with people in Guinea and the Gambia and Mali. And so now that's easier with Zoom, you could possibly do something like that. It might be, interesting. But we do have a senior leadership team that what I love about Elena is she involves them in all decisions, need to be there, and who, representative of Tostan in the field are all there. It's just wonderful.
That's great. Thank you, Molly.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Andrea, very much. Jean-Marc, you were asking a couple of questions, but there was the one that you were asking about the decisions in front of the board. And I wondered if you could bring that question.
Yes, okay, I've turned my phone system. In fact, I have two questions. The first one, do you hear me?
Try one first.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, we can.
The two are related. First one, I would say, is how long do you perceive the transition period? And the second one related is during this transition period, how often have you come to some kind of a disagreement, and how much was the way to go to either the board or the transition committee to help smooth the disagreement or find a way to a decision?
Thank you for that. So it's a question in two parts, as he rightly says. So the period of the transition, first of all, and then the disagreement part. Elena, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, let me come first. Thank you so much, Mark, for this. Is it correct? Is it stable? Can you hear me?
Yeah, all fine.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much for those questions. About the first one, I always say to, someone who, people that ask me, I feel, myself being the CEO of the transition. I feel that my period at Tostan will be the period of the transition, will be that time that it will take for doing such an important step in the life of organization after almost 30 years, as Molly said. And Molly stayed 27 years as a CEO. So I thought in the very beginning that it could last 2 to 3 years. I think that period will be slightly longer. And I'm telling you why. As Molly said, the Tostan DNA, and this is, I think, very specific to Tostan, is the DNA where there are a highly level of participatory process in place in terms of taking the decision. And we are a community-based organization. So we need to live the talk. So our organization is a community-based organization as well, in the sense that we really take people's views into account. Our senior leadership is very broad, and so we build a decision together that are owned and then respected. And so I had to, Molly was having a lot of cascade. So I found myself, first of all, as the only member, as Molly was saying, the only member of the C-suite, and then I enlarged little by little that space. So I hired first a finance and operation officer, and now we just hired a chief of program. So that path has taken quite some time because it was important to have those processes of loyalty to the staff, and also of capacity building and of reinventing a little bit, rethinking the organization all the way through. After 30 years, that's normal. It's not just for Tostan, for every organization. So we have prepared, actually, we have strengthened our system and our processes for, again, the next stage of life. So I think that transition will take the current engagement, strategic engagement plan that we have that take us until 2022. And I hope I will stay, of course, a few maybe years, 1 year, 2 years, who knows, to really help the new transition to be successful, because I think it's important that that I transition this organization to being founder-centered to team-centered. And so the fact that I will transition myself and leave this to a team, it's very important in making the point that the transition was successful. And so it's not from a founder to the next CEO, but it's rather from the CEO, from the founder to a team. And so that to me is very important. So again, it might take 5 years, it might take a little longer. It will take the time that it takes for this organization to be strong and to move forward. Now, on the second question, I don't think we have never taken anything that me and Molly were disagreeing with formally to the board. There has never been such an occasion. And again, that's precisely because the way we have done this transition is doing step by step together. We are not in isolation going, we talk to each other every day. We agree, we disagree every day. So we are used to this. This is familiar to us. And that's very important, of course. It goes really, again, from a place of respect, trust, and committed partnership. But there have been ways where the board, there have been times where the board has played, like a facilitation role, maybe with some stickiness. But again, I couldn't mention, Jean-Marc, an example to you, which is very well defined. I can always say that the board was there to support us, to be that safe container. And that was absolutely critical to us. Yeah, maybe Molly, if you want to add something.
Any comment, Molly, before we go on to other questions?
No, I think that sometimes even when we were preparing to go to the transition committee, we thought, okay, now what are problems that we've had? And we had a hard time thinking of problems that we've had. Because as Elena said, we really do try to work them out. And, we have our times when we don't agree necessarily, and I become defensive, or she says, what? And then, but we know each other, no one ever, it's a lot personality. I just feel extremely lucky. And again, from my own personal experience too, and with knowing what it's like not to have that, and to have had worked with in a situation where I felt that somebody was maybe trying to just get me out, then it was huge for me. It was very painful. And so when you've gone through something like that, I was really suffering, So to me, maybe I had to go through that difficult period after Jen left, when she left afterwards, that I felt like, everything I've worked towards for all these years is just, I'm out of it, but because I don't know what I can do about it. With the support of the board, with the support of well-being, the coaching that I got from that well-being, it helped me to stand up and say, this is not where we have to go, that it is possible to have a different kind. And therefore, it really, I guess sometimes you do have to go through some of that experience, and listening to others, again, knowing that others had gone through that, had this kind of feeling of having been pushed out maybe, or people trying to push you out, and sort of take over. And I think that it just made me feel, just when I saw what Elena was like, I'm just all the more thankful and appreciative of the atmosphere. Even when I've learned a lot from Elena too. She can be very angry about something, or at somebody, but when she comes in, she's, hi, how are you? You know, you would never know. She comes in and does it in a very light and kind way. She's firm and yet she always remains that kind, welcoming person, which it is so critical. I mean, we're in Africa, and she really relates so well to the culture, which was so important to me also. You know, that she had this welcoming, participatory, the group spirit, and just so important for Africa. And as she said, now we're building a team of African leaders that, you know, I feel very confident will, whether she's here or I'm here, you know, or the board members may change, but the organization will continue because, you know, we have, she has done a lot to set in place what the systems needed to make that happen. So I feel extremely lucky.
Thank you. We have a question from Sir Kirman from Indonesia. Do you want to ask the question, sir or madam? You had asked a question about local government. Sir Kirman, Indonesia.
Do we think?
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
No, it's a pleasure.
Suleiman, thank you. I'm very happy to join with this webinar entitled "Don't Stop Me Now." This is very motivating because I'm just 2 days. Next day, I will be retirement from my position. Yes, from my position in local government as a regency. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chris. I would like to ask Molly, normally when we have a position as a CEO, so many support from NGO or GO, but when we do retirement or during transition, and then many the formal structure like local government, they don't have any attention to support. So I would like to ask you how you have already your experience relating to the local government and supporting during your transition. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Sir Kirman. Thank you very much, sir. Molly, were you happy with that? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. You know, Tostan, I used to be involved in everything that happened in Tostan, Senegal. That's when we were in Tostan. I was very connected to local government, meeting with the ministers, meeting at a central level, but at the regional level, traveling and everything. There was a time when we created Tostan International. That was around 2007. That we said, now we're going to hand over all responsibility to country offices. So then we created Tostan Senegal. So I was really in Tostan International, and I made a concerted effort not to get involved anymore. I felt that was the role of Tostan Senegal. That was the role of Tostan Guinea, of Gambia and Mali, that they were the ones who are interacting mainly with local government. And of course, you know, the government recognizes me, especially in Senegal, because I worked for so many years as the CEO and in collaboration with so many people from local government. But I don't think they even realize, because we see many international NGOs have their headquarters in the United States, but we have our international headquarters in Senegal. So it's a bit different, you know? So I did not have that much, and I did so on purpose, intentionally. Intentionally, I let Tostan Senegal be involved in taking over. But,
Great.
you know, and you really have to, as Elena said, intentionality is so critical. And we have had, somebody ask the question, have you had disagreements? You know, I'll just give an example of recently when Elena wanted to write a letter to somebody, and I said, well, I don't agree this is the time to write that letter. And she said, well, I kind of think it is. And I said, well, I don't think it is for this and this and this reason. And she says, okay, well, I'm going to send the letter anyway. And so my first reaction is, oh, before, when I was director, I would have said, no, we don't send that letter. you know. And then I said, Molly, step back. This is fine. This is great. She decided she wanted to send the letter, whatever. It may happen that that letter turns out really well. It may happen it doesn't turn out well. That is, she's got to make her own way. And if it doesn't turn out well, it's just a learning experience. I made many mistakes as CEO in the program, and I always talk about what those mistakes are with people in our training seminars, because maybe it doesn't help anyway, but a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing and I need to try to avoid that. So I think it's very important to be honest with one another about those things, about when you decide that you're going to turn over, and I want to be in this organization and contribute as long as I'm able and can, because I love what we're doing and I love the people we serve and our partner communities and our board and our, and our supporters. And so as long as I can contribute, but I can't contribute if I keep still trying to control. So you
Thank
do
you.
have to intentionally step back.
Thank you very much. Incidentally, Elena put some of the basic metrics of the organization onto the chat, which I thought was helpful a little while back now. So it's, compared to many NGOs, we're talking about quite a large NGO operating out of Africa, which of course is interesting. And if you just scroll through the chat, you'll see some of the metrics there, which is helpful. Absolutely. Now, we are coming towards the end of our seminar. We have Pascal, who's come up on chat. She said, I'd like to comment on the transition from a founder's perspective. Pascal, do you want to come in?
Thank you very much, Chris, and
pleasure. Welcome.
Both Molly and Elena. They're two amazing women, and I really appreciate the openness of the conversation they're having today. Mm-hmm. And Molly, for stepping back, I think that was an amazing step for you to take, and congratulations for doing that. And Elena, for taking over Molly, also, that's just quite a pair of shoes to fill, so congratulations as well. What I just wanted to add quickly, and I've listened to you carefully and really appreciate the background you gave us, because what I saw from being a funder of Tostan for many years now is the ambiguity sometimes, not understanding who actually leads and when. The fact that, as you rightly said, a transition is not set in time, especially because Molly stayed on board of the organization, on board as not only on the board of the organization, but still very involved. So the ambiguity that happened at times, not knowing when both were taking part in meetings could be a little difficult to understand who actually was making decisions, was not always very clear. And the transition seemed to be a long one. And as Elena said, maybe it's not over yet, but I can very much appreciate now the whys and the what you were going through, the two of you, trying to carve that new space for both of you in a way that was constructive and good for the organization. And what I appreciate very much is the fact that you mentioned the intentionality. And I think that was always there. And that's what kept, I think, Tostan very much on track, with all the times where it was maybe a bit difficult for you to find your own new space and everything. So I just wanted to tell you that it's been a pleasure being with you all these years. And now I get even more insight as to how difficult it may have been, but congratulations to both.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Thank you. I'm sure that was really encouraging for both Elena and Molly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris,
yeah.
Chris, thank you. There is a question that Andrea, I don't know if it comes from Andrea, but I think it's an important one, because she's asking about the financial, the financial consequences of having, of course, the CEO and,
yes, having the two people there.
Yeah, she asked about the board to find the financial resources. I think the financial question was there. I think there were some funders, some partners, and thank you, Pascal, really, that were asking themselves, what's the sustainability if Molly continues staying on board? What if we don't see a transition taking place? Is it to a new CEO? Is it to a senior leadership? Is it to, whatever, but there needs to be a thinking and intentionality in this organization. If I continue investing in this, because I think they're doing a great work, but what happens to my investment 5 years down the line? Molly fortunately has a lot of energy. I always say you're the most energetic one. And, we always look at her for that vibrance, but we needed to appreciate that she was a retired age. And so to me, organizationally, it was a sustainability question. And the financial, we have seen that, financially, the organization had a jump again, a revamp, because funders trusted that the transition was going well and they could see the future of the organization. So, the matter of sustaining 2 salaries or the matter of, retaining the 2, to me, is not really the financial question. The financial question is sustainability of the organization. How, again, and that's why what I said before is so important to me organizationally. This is not from Molly to Elena, this is from the founder to a team of committed talent, of committed expertise that is going to take forward the organization. And that is very important, because otherwise, again, when I leave one day, there will be another transition. I think this is the transition of Tostan, and then it will be an almost succession of leaders coming and going as in every other organization. So to me, that question of sustainability is key to this transition. And I'm proud that me and Molly are taking this forward together, because we are writing the future of the organization, actually.
Elena, you're making us feel nervous talking about your transition already. We're just trying to get used to Molly's transition. We don't want you to come on next time.
No.
And
no, don't get nervous. Molly, don't get nervous, please.
Well, Molly may be nervous. We are getting nervous. But anyway,
I'm forward looking. I think some years ahead. No worries.
Absolutely. Mel, we'll be bringing you in a minute, just to give you a little bit of a heads up.
Can I add something, Chris?
Sure.
Just to say, though, what is great about what Elena has said just now is that every CEO, and particularly the founder, should be thinking about succession early. We started this, maybe too late. It could have been earlier than 2015. I wasn't ready. It's true. I wasn't ready then. But I realized how important it is to have the time to get ready, to intentionally go about interviewing people. The interviews with people was so critical. Personally calling people I knew and asking them, how did you feel? How did you deal with that on a personal level? So critical. And that helped. And luckily the board gave me that time. And I just, like Pascal said, it may seem like it didn't happen fast enough in a way, that it is taking a long time, but at Tostan, even in our program, it takes time if you want things to be sustainable. I just think that's so important. It doesn't happen overnight.
That's absolutely right. Ine, would you like to come in? Ine ten Hove, I see you had an interesting question around culture and all of that. Yeah.
This is my first time here. I really enjoyed the group. Thank you so much for your hospitality to invite me in.
No,
I have a question, because when I'm while coaching commercial startups, which are mostly IT firms, which once they're successful can grow extremely quickly and fast, and founders have the problem that in a way they lose control, because everybody you hire becomes more specialist than you are, and in a way takes over the culture. And so one saying is, the only thing a CEO of a founder really can control is the culture and the way people behave, the values which are strong. And especially for social entrepreneurs, where values are specific and the way people behave with one another are chosen and are, I think, much more thought through than, let's say, business where money is the only thing which people are looking for. I was wondering, was that also an important brick or key aspect in this transition?
Sure. So Elena, you were the one who came in to take over. How did you approach the cultural question, the question of culture, organizational culture as well as local culture? Yeah.
No, that question in it is critical. That, as you said, these are the bricks. If you don't build those strong foundation, everything falls apart very quickly. In particular, an organization as Tostan that, as Molly said, are really African values and, you know, deep knowledge coming from not only the expertise, but the experience. So deeply rooted in communities with the communities partnership. What I will add to what you said is that, you know, the founders and the CEO, the new CEO needed to walk the talk in the same way. Though I think the challenge that I had, and it was an important one for me, was really to continue the work of Molly, so the continuity, but to bring that change that, you know, supporters, the board, and the staff wanted, you know, rethinking within that continuity, so strengthening the foundation of that culture, the DNA of the organization, but though bringing fresh air, bringing a fresh perspective, new expertise. So that was my biggest challenge as the new CEO, really making sure that I combine the two and that people feel brought within and brought with me. And I'm talking when I say people, in particular staff, of course, that they felt the legacy, the loyalty to Molly and to the culture of the organization, but also needed a change, needed to be rethought, needed to explore new ways of seeing things. And you know, that I think has been my strength in this process, really making sure that I balance, that I walk slowly but steadily so that I don't miss that.
Walking slowly but steadily. We are going to hand over to Mel, but 1 second, if you want, Molly, just to if you have any capping off words just before I pass over to Mel to finish the program for us.
No, just to say that if the question was asked, can we use these in a smaller organization? I think absolutely. Some of the things that we brought up as being most critical. Choose your board extremely carefully. We've always had a small board, but I can't tell you how important it was that I chose people I knew and trusted and who had the same values and went about this with love, care, and respect. Without that, it would have been impossible. But also, you know, with Elena, you know, the references were so important to be sure that you get references. I've found organizations that bring on people that Tostan is fired and they've never called us to ask us about these people. I mean, references are so important. She got fantastic references from people and that really reassured us also. And then what she said about always saying what we're in here for is for the organization. It's not about Elena, it's not about Molly. It's what can we do to have the organization move forward and continuously keeping that in mind and knowing that, you know, it's not always going to be smooth, but we're willing to really give it all the best that we can to make this work because we love what we're doing. Absolutely. And we actually, and it's such a joyful environment. It really is. It's even over virtual meetings. You know, it's just a very joyful, which matches the way we work in the communities with laughter and dancing and a joyful atmosphere where people feel at ease. And This is what Elena has created, you know, in the staff also, which is beautiful.
That's fantastic. Well, it's with joy then that I pass over to Mel. Mel, if you would like to wrap up for us and just to say, before I hand over, just to say, if people have further questions or they'd like to have further discussion, do please don't hesitate to get in touch. The email is in the system there, which you were sent round, or it's on, and I'll put it on the messaging as well. And I've also put the upcoming webinars, at least the dates for your diary, just to hold coming up for the Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs. Mel, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. First of all, I think to sum up here, I would just like to say thank you so much to Molly and Elena for your insights and for your total honesty. You know, as the Elders Council, we've been onto these sorts of issues, and what we actually need is to hear the real story from people about what genuinely is going on so that we can learn, we can move on in ourselves. And for all social entrepreneurs, this whole issue of retirement And Molly said at the beginning she hated that word, and I think we all hate that word. But how do we deal with it? And so this has been a fantastic example, the table for two, where the founder's staying, working with the CEO, driving the organization forward. And as both of them have said on a number of occasions in the past hour, it's about the organization, it's about the impact of the organization, it's about the sustainability of the organization, and therefore it's how you lead that, and the organization itself will be sustainable and will thrive in the long run. That's the absolute key. But I think one of the things I really took from this, from both Molly and Eleanor, is that in working together, you have to be very open and honest with you and understand the emotional side of us as human beings, and respect that and respect each other, and be prepared to disagree and talk through that disagreement and then move forward with however you get to that. And it's that actually has created this great relationship. So in previous seminars, some of you will have been on them, we've talked about how the founder moves on, completely moves out of the organization. But in this case, we're talking about how the organization is growing and really developing as a result of the two staying together. And there was so many words and expressions that I wrote down. Don't really have time to run through them all now, but I love the expression I think Elena used, the mutual succession approach, which I thought was a kind of lovely thought that people are understanding from the outset. I think maybe what Elena brought, her experience of the family business and what had happened then in terms of succession, applying that then to the social enterprise, the social entrepreneur space, because as she said, it's a bit like a family. And for us, and again, as Molly said, it's her baby. So it's that family thing. And again, that's all full of emotion and it's all about relationships. The boards, obviously mentioned a number of times, absolutely crucial to have the right boards and getting that support. I've never heard of expression before, transition committees. So absolutely tons of takeaways here from this session. So much we can learn from it. And I think for me anyway, it's been a really great session. Some great questions. I probably think we could go on for another hour or so here and stay completely engaged, but we have to finish. So I'd probably like to say just thank you again to everybody who joined the call and stayed connected here. And as Chris said, please stay in touch, ask questions. Chris has put up in the chat there when our next sessions are going to be. Please keep in touch with us. There's going to be a lot more, but certainly this session has been absolutely bang on the money in terms of where many of us are, in terms of this whole issue of succession, moving on, developing, sustaining organization. Table for two, such a fascinating subject area. So thank you both so much again for your time and your insights. Chris.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Mel. And just to say thank you, Molly and Elena, one more time, and to thank you for making this such a successful event. It's been really lovely to have you all on board. Look forward to seeing you again soon to the next webinar, which will be in April. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Joseph. Good to see you there.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting us.
Thank you, Molly.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All the best.